Honestly, it comes back down to like, are you an exceptional storyteller? Like, isn't it an exceptional story? Does it follow the traditional narrative? I think with journalism, it's so instilled in you that you know how to tell great stories, especially with AI content. People are really intrigued about how to think about problems or how people approach problems. So if you can kind of like share how these leaders are like approaching a problem or approaching AI and take people along the journey with you, I think there's some really cool content that you can get from that.
Welcome to the Animals Podcast. I'm Ty Magnan.
And I'm Tim Mess.
In this season on the Animals Podcast, we're pulling back the corporate curtain to show you how the largest, most complex B2B SaaS teams actually get content out the door. Hear from content leaders of some of the biggest names in SaaS, sharing the systems they built, the battles they fought, and the lessons they learned along the way. Today, we're sitting down with Lauren Everitt. Lauren is the former director of content marketing at Okta. She just a few weeks ago switched into a role where she's leading their newsroom effort, which you'll hear plenty about today. Lauren has been in charge with Okta's global content strategy for years. And before Okta, she led content marketing at Slack through many of their boom years before the IPO and the acquisition by Salesforce. In this episode, Lauren shares how her background in journalism led her to where she is, what her role at Okta has evolved to, and how AI has had an impact in how content marketing is structured and performs there. And she also shares how video is becoming a more important part of her content marketing mix. I really hope you stay tuned for the entirety of this episode. It's a great one. Enjoy. Lauren Everitt, thank you so much for joining us today on the Animals Podcast. You know this. We always start with the same question, and it's a doozy. What content are you consuming lately?
Yeah, well, thank you guys so much for having me. Really excited to be here. I think from like a professional perspective, I've been following The Reader a lot by Devin Reed, formerly of Gong. I just think he has such a fun point of view and voice. And when it comes to like audience empathy and like really knowing your reader, he does it so extraordinarily well, both pivoting from sales to now like marketing to other content folks. I once had the chance to interview him, so obviously a bit partial. But him and then Tommy Walker with Content Marketing Institute, just like reading great writing. So I'm kind of on like a New Yorker Atlantic binge right now. And I have two small children, so there is a lot of Miss Rachel and Coco Melon in our household, unfortunately. Yeah, and also a cartoon called Minuscule.
I don't know that one.
It's very French, but it's like for kids, but enjoyable for adults too. It's like a little exotic, and it's about little insects and their lives.
Anyway. Oh, wow. That sounds cool.
It's fun. It's
we both have... Yeah, we got some little kids too, so maybe we'll check those out.
Check it out, yeah.
For, I don't know, like 5-minute snippets, and it's there's no voice, but the sounds are very hyper realistic. Anyway, it's worth checking out.
Cool. YouTube?
Yeah, YouTube. I think Netflix even. But if you look on YouTube, it's crazy because there's like 14 million views. So I'd never heard of it, but I'm like, apparently it's doing really well. So
okay.
Yeah, it's a thing.
Nice. I like it. And would you give a short intro for the audience that doesn't know you yet?
Yeah, sure. I'm Lauren Everitt, Director of Content Marketing at Okta. Prior to Okta, I was at Slack, and my career has followed a very familiar story, I think, on here. So I was initially a journalist and then transitioned over to content marketing. I've had a pretty peripatetic career. So I would say, if I just like pick out a few inflection points or defining moments, I think one of them was being a journalist in Southern and East Africa. I think it taught me to be very scrappy, still a lot of perseverance. And then also I worked for a time with John Byrne, who was the EIC for Fast Company Business Week for a time. So I was one of his first employees on a startup. He's just a magnificent interviewer, a great mentor. So I learned quite a bit from him. And then prior to joining Okta, I was at Slack as a senior content marketing manager. And there I launched a lot of their thought leadership initiatives, which I'm very bullish on reports, as I'm sure we'll like uncover during this conversation. And I think a lot of that stems from that very early experience. But yeah, I think that's me in a nutshell.
So you've noticed too, and Tim and I were just talking about this before we hopped on, that there is like a kind of a path into becoming an enterprise content leader. It seems like, I don't know, Tim, what do you think? 60% of the folk that we interviewed this season have mentioned that their background is in journalism. Would you agree? Or maybe a higher percentage?
Yeah, I think now I think it's 50, 60%. Yeah, definitely.
And so, Lauren, what's up with that? Like, why do you think that is the case?
That's a really great question. I think part of it is like to excel at this job, you have to be highly, I think, inquisitive and curious about the world around you. especially when I think about like sourcing story ideas. There are so many experts within Okta and within the business that a lot of times we are very like external focused, even within the confines of the company and sourcing story ideas. And I think it's almost like putting on your journalism cap, because I can tell you what I think the story is for like an identity security company. But then we have this Okta threat intelligence team whose like sole job is that. So if you kind of come in with this like interviewer journalism perspective and you build out your Rolodex, you just kind of know how to sniff out the really good storytelling. And I do think storytelling is such an art form. And even with all, as we're all witnessing right now, especially with AI, like it all boils back, comes back down to like, are you an exceptional storyteller? Like, isn't it an exceptional story? Does it follow the traditional narrative arc? And I think with journalism, it's so instilled in you that you know how to tell great stories. Whereas sometimes when I've hired folks who have a more pure marketing background, it's a little bit harder to instill. Like I can teach the marketing tactics and the tools and like how you build out a messaging framework and how you build out like a content journey. Those things are much easier to teach than to instill like a hunch for telling a great story, or like kind of when your spidey senses go off and you're like, oh, that's the quote. Like that's the money quote. And that stuff's harder to teach, I think. So that may be why journalists tend to kind of excel in this role. Also, that in the journalism industry right now is not great. So I think a lot of people are jumping ship. Myself included.
Fair. Hey, can you tell us a little bit more about your Africa chapter?
Yeah. Oh gosh. Love talking about that. I think my two goals going into that were I knew I wanted to write and I knew I wanted to live in Africa. So, specifically South Africa, and then that transition to Rwanda and then Kenya. So I did like a 6-7 month internship in South Africa where I was writing for a magazine called The Big Issue. And then I did a year as an online editor for All Africa in Nairobi. And that was a really, really cool experience because we were building out the team. It was similar to like Huffington Post, like kind of a content aggregator for all the news happening, but then we got a lot of development grants. So we were also doing a lot of original reporting, and I'm mostly focused on like health and international development. So that was really cool. And then I also did some where I made the switch over into content marketing was when I was working in Rwanda. I was freelancing there. And I got connected with this sort of startup that was kind of billing itself as like the LinkedIn for young professionals in East Africa. And I was their first full-time employee. And we didn't really have a product yet. We were trying to build kind of this two-sided audience. So both for hiring managers and for job applicants. So like the only thing that existed for a long time was this career magazine that I ran. It was just me. And it was so cool because it was this sandbox where it's like, if you did one thing, you could immediately see the implications of it. Like if you published on this topic, you could see how it performed. And if you promoted over Facebook, and if you put paid promotion behind this, or if you did a wiki page, or if you like, made a syndication deal, and then you could directly see the impact. So I think just being forced to do all those things has really helped me in my career, because it's like it gives you enough knowledge to kind of understand where things are coming from and which levers you can pull. But yeah, it was just a very formative, fun experience, and I learned so much.
Yeah. The early stage stuff really can inform what you end up doing later, I think, because like I don't know, for me, it like helped drive kind of a nose for revenue, like always being able to chase a number or two, like feeling growth and momentum. And then also like you kind of know, you learn a little bit about all the functions within marketing, and how it all connects. And it's harder to get that when you are just like purely at a larger enterprise.
Oh, exactly. And I transitioned from there and to Slack. And I was so used to doing everything, like writing all of the social copy, creating the post, creating the newsletter, creating my own images in Canva. And then finally the art team was like, we appreciate you trying, but like, please stop creating these images. They're garbage. And I thought they were good. Like I was using like early Canva days, and anyway, a lot of stock imagery.
Yeah. But what's the story there? How did you go from there to Slack? This sounds like a big big step. From Africa to Slack.
I kind of the time was wrapping up in Rwanda, and like the startup, we sort of ran out of funding as startups do. And so then I was moving back, and my now husband was in San Francisco. So I was kind of figuring out my next moved with him. I was still doing a lot of freelancing, and then I had been using Slack the whole time I was in Rwanda, and was like, it's completely infatuated with the product. And then they posted a job description for basically content editor. So I was super excited, applied for that. And I'm very close with my hiring manager, who actually followed to Okta and was VP of content for Okta. And now she's at Asana. I still have no idea why she hired me, because I would not have hired me based on my resume. But she was also a former journalist, and she was like really excited about my journalism experience. And then just through the editing test and interview process, she extended an offer. So yeah, I was there pre-IPO and Salesforce acquisition. So it was a really wild ride and so much fun. A lot has changed, since I was there, but it was pretty cool we had a lot of, when I joined the team, it was, kind of the halcyon days where you're like flush with all this investment and you're about to IPO. So you have like unlimited budgets and you can just try all these really cool content experiments. And it was a wild and good time, especially coming from nonprofits in Rwanda and then like falling into all these like benefits. I was like, are you kidding me? I remember someone complaining because we only got like $2,000 or something for our office stipend. I was like, I can't buy a chair for less than $1,000. And I remember being like, you can go to Walmart and buy a chair for $20. Coming off of like my journalism nonprofit salary, but
different lifestyle, I'm sure.
Oh, totally. You adjust upwards very quickly.
Okay. So I've got to pause and turn it to Tim for a minute, because Tim, I didn't know you lived in Africa for any period of time, and I've known you for quite a while. Catch me up, bud.
Well, I went to Africa in 2005, and I was just like, I'm going to do my own internet documentary project. So I took my camera and I took my laptop. I was a video maker at that time. And then I basically made kind of documentary, but on the spot. So I would like film for a week, then I would edit it and I would put it online, and then I would continue. But so it's not like episodes. It's kind of like an ongoing story, but it kind of also created itself as I was there. So, and I just kind of went like, I don't know anything about Africa, and I'm just going to film how I go there as like any random person from the West would go there, and then just like, what is different, what is like
before vlogs were vlogs.
Because there was no like YouTube was kind of, it's kind of existed, but not really, and there was no social media. So like I just had a website and I put it there, and then people would come to it, and then the kind of word of mouth, and it went quite well actually. It was quite nice. The videos are still there. I will put them in the show notes if you want. But this was like 2005, 2006. So I don't know when were you in Nairobi? You said.
Oh gosh, 2011, 2012.
Okay. So it's a bit later. Yeah.
But I've been in like South. 2011, 2012. But that's very cool. I'm excited to see the videos.
Right. Thanks for taking me down that rabbit hole a little ways. Let's talk about Okta, and then maybe we come back to Slack.
Sure. Yeah.
I guess tell us about sort of the scale of Okta now in terms of like headcount, maybe at the company, and then also your content team. Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. I just Googled that this morning because I was like, I wonder if that question comes up, but I don't think I know the answer. Oh, it's like 6,000. And Slack is 3,000, which I think I joined Slack, it was 1,800. So it grew quite a bit. But yeah, so we're 6,000 at Okta currently. And it's an interesting kind of setup because we have our Auth0 content marketing team, because they really have a different marketing motion. It's very much more bottoms up versus enterprise buyer down. So they kind of do their own thing and are very focused on developer marketing. And it's pretty different motion from the Okta side. And I've actually kind of made a very recent transition. So I joined as like the director of content marketing, traditional content marketing role. And then as of January of this year, I got an opportunity. Our SVP of comms really wanted to invest in a newsroom. So like a brand new project that would be run on the comms team. So I joined that pilot team. So I think I out of habit said director of content marketing, but it's actually director of the newsroom as of a couple of weeks ago. But well, that's when the title change went into effect. But yeah, we've been on that team since January, and then launched the newsroom in April. And then my team consists of 6 people. So we have editor, managing editor, art director. We just have some like operations kind of associate, full-time writer, reporter. So yeah, pretty nimble and lean team. Definitely, especially as we transitioned away from marketing to spin this new project up, kind of have to prove our worth in order to get more investment in headcount. But
got you. And did you bring your whole team with you from marketing to comms?
No, so not a few folks stayed. So initially, I was also overseeing the social media team, and it made more sense for them to continue sitting on marketing. So they stayed, as well as we had like a full-time brand writer. So he stayed on marketing to help kind of launch this new brand campaign. But yeah, so it was a pretty big transition.
Yeah. And did that like leave any kind of hole behind within the marketing org, or the rest of the org, I should say?
With in terms of the marketing side, I think they're still working through, but a lot of it was absorbed either through like agency support or PMM or campaigns. I think we're really fortunate at Okta that the PMM, like product marketers and campaigns team, really lean into content creation, especially now with AI, to get them to like a first draft or a lot of the derivative content. And we still oversee a lot of the large like flagship reports reports, which then they'll draft off of. But yes, there's definitely been some like reshuffling or reallocation of like responsibilities and roles and all of that. But yeah.
And did the big reports come with you? Like the big one you guys do, it's business at work.
Right, exactly. Businesses at work. And that's like 10 years in the making. So yeah, it's come with us. We've always like kind of been our baby. So, and there's a big newsroom and earned media play too. So that's where we're kind of able to like justify keeping it on the comm side, at least for now.
Yeah. Well, tell us more about the kinds of stories that you're focusing in on now with this change of scope.
Yeah. It's really exciting because with the newsroom, sort of the impetus behind it was to really build this owned content hub where we could really tell the Okta story, establish it as a credible authority in the space, and like really bring value to our readers. And so as a former journalist, like content, somebody who loves it, I mean, it's so much fun to kind of get to play in like top of funnel content land and not have to always go down and be thinking through like the product specs and like the customer case studies that prove ROI. In terms of like our content focus areas, what's been really cool is we're kind of, a few years ago, we had the security incident, right? And as a security company, that's a big, big deal. And so then we launched this Okta Secure Identity Commitment, and it basically revolutionized the way we work. I mean, from a day-to-day basis, it changes the way we approach things. And it's all about like, how do we not only secure like our infrastructure and how we work, but how do we elevate the industry with kind of knowledge about like threats and like what AI, the implications of AI and how to like secure your identity infrastructure and what that looks like. And so a large part of our focus is like, how do we tap our experts, both internal and external, to really position ourselves as the leader in the space and really help educate the industry and our customers and our prospects. So it's been really cool. So a lot of like, when I think about our content mix, we lean heavily on like a lot of our internal SMEs and executives to really share like their thought leadership. We have a really close partnership with the Okta Threat Intelligence team. So they're a fairly new team, but their whole focus is just like, what are the new and emerging threats in AI? It's been really cool because we work with them to publish that content and package it up in like a really like consumable format. And it's been nice because we're also getting a lot of like earned media from that as well. And then we just launched this series called Executive Exchange. And so we really wanted to like shake up the approach to customer videos. And with this series in particular, we interview like CISOs and CTOs and CIOs, basically those like C-suite titles that align with our target buyer personas, and like really go deep on a specific subject that might be top of mind for them. So maybe it's like, I don't know, the evolution of phishing or like phishing attacks and things like that. But it's something that's like keeping CISOs awake at night. And here's what your peers are doing. So it's all these short video snippets, hearing from our executives, like elevating our customers and their knowledge, but at the same time, like bringing that really important knowledge to light for others to learn from. So it's been really cool. And next week, we'll launch a series with our CEO about how he's thinking about agentic AI and what that means for identity. And spoiler alert, it is a wild west out there.
Yeah, I imagine it's really important for your persona in particular that you're writing for to be on top of this stuff.
Oh,
right?
Exactly.
Newsroom, it's not just about like storytelling, but it's also about speed, or not, like to be really like being out quick with stories.
Yeah, there is an element of that. I wouldn't say like, I don't think we're trying to compete with some of like the trade publications that can like get things out and like here's the latest hack. And then like, I guess we wouldn't do so much of the like ambulance chasing, but there are stories that do have like a time sensitive element to it. Like if we do hear, like there was this big kind of revelation about like generative AI being used by like these North Korean like laptop farms to apply for jobs en masse and security.
I read that.
Jobs.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And so it was very timely. So we knew we needed to get something out pretty quickly because there was like, or recently like Vercel, that AI tool, and people were using it to spin up these very like sophisticated looking websites that people were then logging into. So we wanted to, so a lot of our stories do have a timeliness element to it, but we really try to provide like the second day coverage. So it's not that, I don't think we would ever win in the competition to be like the first to break the news, but if we can provide maybe that analysis or commentary or like actionable insights, like that's where we see the newsroom providing value, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I wrote down ambulance chasing. I didn't know that term, but it immediately makes sense. I'm sure it's from journalism.
As a former journalist, you're like very attuned to that. But here, it's like, especially if it's like one of our like the impulse is you see like your competitor get hacked or something happened to them and you're like, oh, we should cover that. But then you're like, wait, okay, take a beat. Like we're not going to do it.
I'm curious about the video component that you mentioned. So you're doing some of these high quality videos for the C-suite, and probably you said customer videos too. So maybe there's like a broader approach. How do you collaborate with video? I guess like tell me about your video programs, because I think a lot of people in content like, where does video sit with them? How do they do video? I'm curious to learn from you a little bit how you all do it.
Yeah, to be honest, it's a very new motion for us. When we were squarely on marketing and content marketing, our focus was written content. But with the newsroom, part of our mandate is also to pilot new content types and innovative storytelling techniques. And we've had a lot of support from leadership on that. So I'm going to, ride with that as long as we can. But I think in terms of video, one of the other driving factors is just AI. Like, how are we still surfacing our content in the age of AI, where it's like there's a lot more competition for written content, and videos, I think, are still a little bit, the bar is a little higher. So it makes it stand out a little bit more. And also when we look at like performance too, we see a lot more traction like on LinkedIn, which is our primary kind of social channel, with video is like no surprise. So we just kind of started some pretty straightforward pilots just to see. And then as we can like prove out the success, we'll get more funding. But in terms of our video program, I think the big one was the executive exchange series. And with that one, we had tried written content and we just weren't seeing the metrics that we wanted. We just weren't seeing the performance. And so that's when we kind of went back to our customer marketing lead, who's lovely to work with and has great relationships with our customers. And fortunately at the time, they were also kind of trying to figure out, because it's harder and harder to get customers to buy into a full case study because, right, you have to get like so many approvals and through legal. I think every content marketer knows like you'll get a case study almost done and then the customer side, they'll put the kibosh on it.
Half of them never see the light of day, right? And then you have to like decide at a certain point, are we just going to anonymize this thing and publish it anyway?
Exactly. And so what was nice about this is it's more focused on the individual and it's not so Okta focused, because especially with Okta, like people don't want to share their security implementation and exactly like what they're going to safeguard their like infrastructure. And so what's been nice with this is we're just going deep on very high level topic that people still care about. And it's been very easy to get buy-in from both customers, like initially, and to get sign off from their legal teams. So just from a lot of different angles, it made sense. So we started with that just because we had an agreement with customer marketing and it like was also furthering their goals to kind of get more customer content out there. We're expanding that now to really focus on our internal executives as well. We have some really, as I'm sure most like SaaS companies do, when you're talking to like your chief product officer or your like, like your CISO or your CTO, it's just one of the things that I've found too is like, especially with AI content, is there's so much already of telling you kind of like what to think, but people are really intrigued about how to think about problems or how people approach problems. So if you can kind of like share how these leaders are like approaching a problem or approaching AI, and take people along the journey with you, I think there's some really cool content that you can get from that. So that's kind of our angle for executives. And then another kind of big bet that we're taking with video is historically, like our big event is Octane. And historically, we've just done like the write-up and here's like the post-event coverage and here are the highlights and here's all the product announcements. And then we realized like all these other teams are doing the same thing. Like product marketing is going to do it. We're going to issue a press release on all the product announcements. I'm like, how do we like differentiate it and then differentiate it from like the online version? And so we're actually bringing in a broadcast journalist to do these video snippets and like same day recaps and then a highlights reel. She's like very high energy, very, like recognized in the industry. So she's going to come in and do that. Cause I'm like, how do we just capture the energy for someone who doesn't want to like sit down and commit to the full live event? Can we do like a 7-minute video that captures all the highlights and the product update accompanied by like a 200-word article? So that's one of the other initiatives that I'm excited about to just try and like see how it goes.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, you're kind of in the place of doing some experiments even at your scale, right? Because of, the change of demand and I guess the way that content's being done and how to stand out, right?
Exactly. I will say that's been one of the nice things about moving away from marketing, is just because with marketing, it's already so prescribed. Like it's like, here's our personas and we need to like develop this full content, like full funnel content experience.
You need a checklist and a report and 4 blog posts.
Exactly. Like as you say that, I'm like, oh yeah.
Like ordering a pizza,
So it's been really cool because that's kind of like all cleared off the table. And they were like, spin up a newsroom and build content for it. So then we're like, and at first it's like kind of terrifying because you're like, I have this blank site that I need to populate quickly. And how do we do it? But it's been really exciting.
It's exciting now. Yeah. Well, so I kind of want to back up and talk about the void left behind from, before. Like the content marketing motion now is different. And you mentioned that like AI is kind of helping fill in the gap, I guess. In a not so insignificant way. Can you tell us more about that? I think a lot of folks are starting to see that and experiencing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say like Okta's not using AI to like draft content wholesale, but I think it has condensed a lot of the work, like the prep work. I know for us specifically, like all of the research and like interview questions and all those things, like a lot of times you can take a pretty massive shortcut by using it for that. Even just like outlining, like if you have customer interviews or an interview and then you just kind of like feed it into whatever AI or LLM that you're using, then you can like spit out the outline and the juiciest customer quotes. So I think we're using a lot there. And I have seen the marketing team and us as well lean in, especially on like derivative content. So historically, when we would do a report, obviously like every report has a tail of, 50 other pieces of content. So you're writing the ads, you're writing the emails, you're writing the landing page copy and all of that. And I think all of that, which historically sat with our team, now sits on marketing. And I've watched that team and we do the same thing, like lean into AI. I mean, so a human still reviews it, but AI is doing the first pass at all of those things. And another interesting thing is it's pretty cool. And I'm trying to think if I've like been on an org where this has happened before, but like the SEO content specifically, and the blog now sits with our digital acquisition team, and they have an editor who was formerly on our team, and that's one person I should have mentioned earlier, that now sits on the digital acquisition team, like the digital team, to oversee like all the blog content, and we do outsource that to an agency. So like all SEO content is to an agency. So I'd say it's a combination. Like we shortcut it as much as we can with AI, and then kind of either like the product marketer or the campaigns lead or an agency will kind of take that content over the finish line or drop. Like, you can use AI to get a pretty robust outline for an SEO article, but you still need someone to do that last, what is it, like 30-40%?
Something like that. Yeah. Interesting. Are there any specific tools that you all have implemented in order to enable this model, or is it all like, bring your own?
Bring your own tool. I wish.
Yeah.
I wish. Yeah. So company-wide, we use ChatGPT. So that's the primary one. Oh, sorry. Gemini. I don't know why I said ChatGPT. A few of us have access to the pilot ChatGPT. Company-wide, it's Gemini. And then we use Jasper in particular on the content team. So that's been really helpful, especially like when you can create audiences or personas that you apply to content. Oh, sorry. That's the other thing I should have mentioned where we use AI specifically is like personalization of content. So you kind of have your core piece, and then how do you personalize it? And so we typically will use like AI if we want to take like a different angle on it, or like say, we don't have a sales buyer, but if we had a sales buyer and you're like with the CTO buyer, how do you like reframe it? So use AI to get like first pass of that. Yeah, Jasper is a big one. I was trying to think if there's anything else. I mean, personally, I love using Claude, but we haven't gotten clearance on that one yet.
Interesting. Is there any centralized like governance over the tool from a content person's, like, does anyone in content or with that experience get to help set up Jasper or like own that in order to like, or build the workflows or something like that? Or have you not really experienced that so far?
Such a great question. It's so funny because we just conducted this survey about AI usage, and it's like 90% of companies are using AI for all these like functional areas, and only 10% have any governance guidelines in place. So that was like highly relevant to.
So are you in the 10% or the 90? I get my math.
Yeah, I want to get myself in trouble. Yeah, it's interesting. I think for discrete, so we have like an overarching like governance council who kind of manages like what teams and how you can use them and what information you can input. And that's pretty strict and like really robust. On the individual team level and the content guidance, it's really, I would say, up to the team. So we have like our own internal guidelines for the newsroom, but then I know like the SEO team kind of has different guidelines for how they approach SEO content. Even like the Auth0 content team has their own kind of approach to AI. So it's like across all the content creators of the business, there's no like one standardized set of guidelines for how you approach AI. It's kind of up to the prerogative of like the individual content team lead. We probably should have one, but
Yeah.
It's not there yet.
Is there any like voice governance at Okta to like help everyone that's contributing content to sort of follow the brand standard or the voice and tone?
Yeah, absolutely. So I will say, especially like when we use Jasper and everything, we do have a brand team and they are really the arbiter of like voice and tone. And then my team had defined like the editorial style guide. So that's like the source of truth for how, like all of the like punctuation and all those types of things. But yeah, in terms of, there's a lot of, if you're a content creator, we do have trainings that's like mandated that you complete, like you need to complete like the voice and tone training and you need to complete like style guide training and you need to complete, but then there is a lot of like trust and expectation that like once you've completed these trainings that you're professional enough to like implement. So there's not, I know at some companies, there's like every single piece of content is reviewed from like a brand and tone perspective. And we just like the scale at which we produce content, it would be such an immense bottleneck to do that. So we don't actually review like everything through a brand lens, but we do enforce the training and we do have like very robust guidance around it.
How do you enforce the training? Like take us into that program a little
Yeah,
further.
it's really cool. And I wish I could take credit for this. This is actually came through the brand team. So we got to like insert our guideline thoughts into it. But we have like this Okta University and it's like, it's the same thing where you deliver like your compliance training and legal training that you have to complete every year as like an employee of, so many large company or even maybe small company. And as part of that, like basically we slot that in there and it becomes a mandatory training. So your manager and their manager gets alerted if you're overdue on it. So there is like actually some teeth to it, which is nice. Because if you don't complete it, your manager and then their manager gets like these incessant emails about how you are delinquent.
Right. Delinquent. But like a developer doesn't have to take the voice and tone training, right?
No,
like
unless they were, exactly. Unless they were like, well, I say that we do have like some contributors from the developer side. So if they were like publishing, then they would need to like complete the training. But a lot of them are more just kind of like guest publishers. And then it gets routed through an editor who kind of does the whole process of like, and that's both on the Auth0 side and the Okta side. Like everything that like goes out on the Okta blog is reviewed through an editor for like a quick check on voice and tone and like copy edits. But that's more for specific to the blog, I'd say.
Nice. Interesting.
I have one more question. This takes it in a slightly different direction. But we had written down this question and said, if budget and time were no limit, what new content format or series would you launch? But it sounds like you actually live that reality at Slack. So I would almost want to change it to like, what's the craziest content thing you did at Slack?
Oh, craziest content thing. Oh, well, I know. When you have a limited budget, you can get really creative. And I was just coming off, we were doing customer videos and we had a chance to kind of like reimagine how they would be. And so we had a really incredible film team there. So we wanted to do like a visual component. And we also wanted to like show that Slack had use cases outside of like the traditional B2B SaaS. So we identified this dairy farm that was using Slack and it was so cool. It was like in Northern California and I forget how many cows they had, but we got to go out there and do this video shoot on this dairy farm. And we had like drone footage of all the cows and like talking to the farmers and like all the like the milking was coordinated over Slack. And it was kind of just to show like how ubiquitous this tool was.
Is it live? Can we still see it?
I'll try to find it. It was Wickstrom Dairies.
Because I remember, now you say that, I remember like from Slack's website, it was like one with NASA or something. Sorry, I mispronounce it. NASA. I always mispronounce the acronyms.
We did City Block Health too, which was we filmed in Brooklyn. And they kind of had like home health providers that would like walk the streets of Brooklyn and like help provide
and
care. We just, I think that we were all so sick of just filming videos in offices, and we're like, how can we get outside the office and actually get like interesting B-roll that's not people working on their laptops? That was cool.
I go to a dairy farm for the day and produce a video. That sounds fun.
It was so fun. It was a really, really cool experience. Yeah, highly recommend it. If you could find any like obscure customers.
Yeah. It makes the visuals a lot more interesting.
It really does. and the use case is just like fascinating. I don't know if it like resonated so well with enterprise buyers, but how many of them
But it
are
was
milking
cool.
by the cows. But
All right.
Nice. Well,
This is
Lauren, thank
awesome.
you so much for joining us. Yeah, just learned a ton. I know our audience did too. Where can people find you to follow along on what you're publishing
yeah, definitely check us out on the Okta newsroom, and then I'm always on LinkedIn, so would love to connect with new folks there.
Nice.
Awesome.
Thanks so much. We'll follow you there.
Thanks for your time. It was so great to meet you guys.
Well, Tim, that was another good one, huh?
Yeah, that was great. Yeah. Even though it's in the middle of the night for me, I was really energized by Lauren. It was super cool.
There you go. That's the proof, right? It's like you can tell how good it went by how sleepy Tim is by the end, you know?
Wait, yeah. Especially now. Yeah, it was really nice. I already wrote down this thing of like, I think there's a newsroom trend also, at least in enterprise. We have several people who have newsrooms now, I think.
Can you name any? I don't remember.
Maybe, yeah. I think Mallory has a kind of newsroom at Square. I think Stephanie definitely had a newsroom. I don't know if she had it now or it was in the past. I think we had another one.
Well, I think a lot of enterprise SaaS companies end up with a PR blog type thing, right? And it's often like called, is that /press or is that /newsroom? And it is separate from the blog. Often though, it's publishing their own updates in content. So it's like, like we just hired a new CTO, right? That hits the newsroom. But yeah, I think the version that Mallory and of course Lauren was talking about today was much more about like finding stories out there and bringing it on the site.
And having like a real kind of newsroom.
Yeah, I wonder if they mix that into actually the press stuff that they're pushing that's more internal updates, like the company news.
Yeah, I also wrote down like, I think because we were searching for like what's the definition of enterprise. I think maybe the definition of enterprise is when you need to Google what size your company is that you work at. Because like that means that it's big, It's like, I don't know if we have like 3,000 people or 6,000 people or whatever.
Yeah. I don't know. It's big. Nice. What were the most impactful takeaways for you?
I mean, more of like a general observation, but I keep also thinking like, oh yeah, we need to dig in more into storytelling and journalism and what we can learn from that. Like the other end of the spectrum is like that keeps like let's say adjacent skills and fields that like most content marketers can probably learn more from. Like one is to me is like product marketing, and one other one is journalism. I mean, even though it's obvious, but it's like I think we don't do that enough. Where it's like, okay, what can we learn from this, and how should we apply that? Yeah,
I think about design too is another axis there of like someone you might collaborate with, but like if you really have that those tricks in the bag, right? Then I think you can make more impactful pieces. Video too, right? Video is right up there.
Yeah, for sure. And because of AI, it's almost becoming more adjacent. Some of these things, especially like video design, programming,
like they're getting closer in terms of
like more accessible to content marketers. I also just really liked her story. It's so nice to hear what she said. Also, like how going from like an NGO in Africa to like going to Slack. It's about the IPO. That's crazy. But also how that's like it's also kind of a nice analogy. I've also had that even. I was going from like a really small startup to like a startup of like 10 people to a startup of like 200 people. But then even there, the difference in like what she said, like how I wanted to be scrappy about doing the website. And then people were kind of pushing back, like, you can't do the website for like $1,500. Like it's going to cost at least $10,000. And I'm like, I'm sure I can do it for $1,500. Like how you, then people almost don't take you seriously if you say, even though it is possible, So I like that. What about you? What do you think? What did you take away?
Yeah, I think the impetus of AI changing the role of content at Okta and then opening up in a way like a space for her and her team or, some majority of it to go occupy or go after a different opportunity I found really interesting, right? So the idea that like, okay, now a campaigns team, like if the content team was primarily helping write content and AI can basically help do some of that. I mean, maybe not the drafting, right? But like creating a good brief and so on and so forth. And like, your campaigns and product marketing team is like reasonably skilled at producing content, at writing. Then yeah, listen, the role for a content team, like it's smaller now in terms of its scale because people are able to kind of like, push their way into that area. I mean, push isn't the right word, but that. I've heard murmurs of this happening in other companies. I think we even heard from some of our guests this season that there's some similar conversations kind of happening. And it's interesting to see how she landed on her feet in this press newsroom play. And, we don't know how proven out it is. Like, obviously, Lauren is excellent. Like, she'll figure herself out. And I think the team will have some good value here. But it's like, it's new. It's somewhat experimental in that way, it seems. So I don't know what my takeaway is from that. I think one that like, it's surprising that then there couldn't be like a content ops, almost like marketing ops, right? But like to help set up the AI tooling to produce more consistent quality outcomes, that kind of thing. Like feels to me like there should be someone there thinking that way or like responsible for that. And then the idea of like having an editor to review content such as you might from an agency. And I think they have that set up in a few places. And it's not like their stuff's going unedited, right? But like someone with that expert eye to also play a role there. It feels like those two things could be true for other enterprises that are undergoing a similar shift. But then it's definitely true that the value of writing content, it's just not what it used to be. So yeah, not trying to end on doom and gloom. I mean, I think what's cool about like Lauren's new role is she's applying the same journalism skills to bring something net new to her audience that's of value, right? She's figuring out video or doing more of that, which is like going to be, it's less AI-able and thus, probably more important in the way people want to consume information. And, the big effort that she does around like their annual businesses at work report is coming along with, right? So like there are still these things that are needed and now some like emergent content motions or types or mediums that I think folks will want to really rapidly learn into as they maybe continue to support traditional content through a different way, again, like the ops and stuff. So I think maybe that's the direction we're heading, at enterprises and all the way down to startups.
Well, and that's super cool, right? To actually hear that they're doing, like, she actually described all these different initiatives they're working on, and they're actually super interesting, high quality, brand and story driven formats. And hopefully that's a trend we'll see in more places, because I think that's kind of content that's great to make stuff. And great to consume. Yeah, and it's fun.
Fun stuff, right? Like that's the stuff that we content marketers are always like, I really want to get into this. And so, yeah, now's as good a time as any, probably a better time than ever to get going on those.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks all for listening to another episode. We'll see you again soon.
See you in the next episode. Bye-bye.